Now to that breaking news overnight. Grammy-nominated rapper Nipsey Hussle shot and killed outside his own clothing store in Los Angeles.
It seemed that he was friends with everybody. Nipsey Hussle really broke through a barrier before he teamed up his independent label with Atlantic Records here in Hollywood. He famously sold his mixtape, a CD, on the street.
Rapper Nipsey Hussle's alleged killer was attacked on his way to court. Eric Holder's attorney tells TMZ that he was attacked by two people while in a holding cell. Holder needed 3 staples after being cut with what's believed to be a razor. He also may have lost consciousness.
On Saturday night, March 30th, 2019, Ermias Askedom, better known to the world as Grammy-nominated rapper Nipsey Hussle, had no idea that he was living through what would become the final 48 hours of his remarkable 33-year journey on Earth. As he sat courtside in Anaheim, California, watching the Texas Tech Red Raiders battle the Gonzaga Bulldogs in March Madness, the beloved South Central Los Angeles icon appeared relaxed and in good spirits, enjoying what millions of Americans consider a sacred spring tradition. The cameras captured him in what would become one of the last public photographs of his life. A moment of pure normalcy that would soon be overshadowed by an unimaginable tragedy that would send shockwaves through not just the hip-hop community, but the entire city of Los Angeles and beyond. That same evening, Nipsey took to social media to connect with his fans, broadcasting live from what appeared to be a comfortable setting, discussing his plans for the coming week and his ongoing community projects. His voice carried the same passionate tone that had defined his career, a mixture of street wisdom and entrepreneurial vision that had made him not just a successful artist, but a revered figure in his neighborhood. He spoke about the Marathon store, his clothing boutique and community hub on the corner of West Slauson Avenue and Crenshaw Boulevard, and his excitement about upcoming projects that would further his mission of economic empowerment in South LA. None of his followers could have imagined that this would be among his final public communications. Sunday morning, March 31st, 2019, dawned like any other day in the Crenshaw district of South Los Angeles. The Marathon store, Nipsey's pride and joy, stood as it always did, a beacon of black ownership and economic independence in a community that had long struggled with disinvestment and neglect. Local residents and fans would often stop by the store, hoping to catch a glimpse of the rapper who had never forgotten his roots, who had invested his success back into the very streets that raised him. But according to reports that would later emerge, there were already undercurrents of tension brewing, whispers of threats and concerns that had allegedly prompted Nipsey's team to consider increasing his security just days prior. The neighborhood where Nipsey had chosen to invest his time, money, and energy was more than just a business location. It was a statement of purpose.
The city was deep. You'll hear that from Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson in a moment. My own office was able to work with him on a number of initiatives to bring more African Americans in the tech industry, to stand up businesses for people who have been involved with the criminal justice system.
Residents would later tell reporters how Nipsey wasn't just a celebrity who happened to be from the area. He was a constant presence who understood that real change came through economic empowerment and community building. His vision for Crenshaw included plans for affordable housing, co-working spaces, and educational programs that would provide alternatives for young people who might otherwise be drawn into the cycle of street life that he himself had escaped through music and business. What none of the community members gathering around the Marathon store that Sunday afternoon could have known was that 29-year-old Eric Ronald Holder Jr. was also moving through the neighborhood, carrying with him a grievance that would soon explode into violence. According to prosecutors who would later piece together the events of that tragic day, Holder was someone from the same area who knew Nipsey personally. They had grown up in the same neighborhood, breathed the same air, faced many of the same challenges that defined life in South Central LA. But on this particular Sunday, Holder was nursing a dangerous combination of anger and perceived disrespect that would prove deadly. The sequence of events that would lead to tragedy began with what seemed like a routine encounter. According to witness testimony that would later be presented in court, Holder approached Nipsey outside the Marathon store earlier in the day for what appeared to be a casual conversation between two men from the same neighborhood.
Basically, when Eric get out, you know, and they talk, the split second that they had, it was a brief conversation. So it wasn't a 10, 20, 30-minute conversation, okay? Let's just say a minute conversation, you know what I mean? So you ain't seen your partner in a while. You ain't seen your associate. Y'all grew up together. You ain't seen your friend in a while. He push up on you. Hey, you know, and Nip say, you know, some shit floating around, you know, take care of it. You know, like.
But this conversation would take a turn that set in motion the events that followed. Nipsey, according to prosecutors, had calmly mentioned to Holder that word on the street suggested he might be cooperating with law enforcement, a reputation that in the code of the streets represented the ultimate violation of trust and loyalty. What happened next would become the subject of extensive legal proceedings and community soul-searching. Rather than addressing the allegations directly or attempting to clear the air, Holder left the scene. But his departure was not the end of the confrontation. It was merely the beginning of a deadly escalation. Witnesses later described how the initial conversation appeared calm.
Niggas be hating on me, you know, hating on me. And that was like, man, you know what I'm talking about? Take care of it. And left it at that, and it was off to the next fan. So it was like a split. You know, you ain't seen your cousin in a while, and he pop up, and you're like, hey, bro, look, you know, they got some paperwork floating around. He just sidebarred him. You feel me? He didn't put him on. He just kind of sidebarred him, like, look, bro, they got a little paperwork on you, know. You know what I'm talking about. I'm like, yeah, these niggas be hating on me. Da-da-da. All right, nigga, take care of it. Because walked on, you know, even then, at the end, he shook our hands, did all. It was never nothing heated. If it had been anything somewhat heated, I would have snatched cuz up.
Almost mundane. But those who knew the unwritten rules of street culture understood that accusations of being a snitch were not taken lightly, especially when delivered in front of others in the community. At approximately 3:18 p.m. Pacific time, Eric Holder returned to the Marathon store parking lot. But this time he was not there for conversation. Security cameras captured what would become crucial evidence in the prosecution's case against him. Footage that would later be played in courtrooms and analyzed frame by frame to understand exactly how a neighborhood dispute escalated into murder. The video shows Holder approaching the small group of people gathered around Nipsey, who was signing autographs and taking photos with fans, engaging in the kind of community interaction that had defined his relationship with his neighborhood throughout his career. What happened next would haunt everyone who witnessed it. According to prosecutors and court testimony, Holder opened fire on Nipsey Hussle, shooting him at least 10 times with calculated precision. The attack was not random or impulsive. It was, according to legal proceedings, a premeditated execution carried out in broad daylight in front of dozens of witnesses. Two other individuals, Carrie Lathan and Shermy Villanueva, were also wounded in the shooting, but would survive their injuries. The violence was not limited to gunfire. Prosecutors alleged that Holder also kicked Nipsey in the head before fleeing the scene, adding a level of personal animosity to an already brutal attack. The chaos that followed the shooting was captured in frantic 911 calls and emergency response footage that would later become part of the public record. Paramedics arrived on the scene to find Nipsey Hussle critically wounded, fighting for his life in the same parking lot where he had been signing autographs for fans just moments before. Despite the best efforts of emergency medical personnel who rushed him to a nearby hospital, the extent of his injuries was too severe. At 3:55 p.m., just 37 minutes after the shooting began, Ermias Askedom, Nipsey Hussle, was pronounced dead at the age of 33, marking the end of a life that had been dedicated to lifting up his community and inspiring others to follow their dreams. The news of Nipsey Hussle's death spread through South Los Angeles like wildfire, creating scenes of grief and disbelief that would be repeated in communities around the world.
Among those sharing their grief, including artists Rihanna and P. Diddy, NBA superstars LeBron James and Steph Curry, who weighed in during a post-game press conference.
Definitely a sad, tragic event. Obviously, send prayers to his family. his community.
And John Legend in shock, tweeting, "I just spent Thursday with him and filmed a video for a beautiful new song."
Fans began gathering at the Marathon store within hours, creating an impromptu memorial that would grow into a massive outpouring of love and remembrance. The Crenshaw district, which had been the site of so much of Nipsey's community work and investment, became ground zero for a city's mourning process. People who had never met him personally felt as though they had lost a family member, a sentiment that spoke to Nipsey's unique ability to connect with people through his music and his commitment to community uplift. Within hours of the shooting, the Los Angeles Police Department had launched a massive manhunt for Eric Holder, who had fled the scene immediately after the attack. Using surveillance footage, witness testimony, and community tips, investigators were able to quickly identify Holder as their primary suspect and issue a public plea for information leading to his arrest. The manhunt would captivate the city and beyond, as millions of people who had been inspired by Nipsey's message of empowerment and community building demanded justice for his killing. 2 days after the shooting, on April 2, 2019, Eric Holder was arrested in Bellflower, California, bringing to a close a manhunt that had involved not just law enforcement, but an entire community determined to see justice served. His arrest was met with relief from Nipsey's fans and family, but also with a profound sadness that justice could not bring back the man whose life had been cut short just as he was reaching new heights both artistically and as a community leader. In the days and weeks following Nipsey's death, the full scope of his vision for South Los Angeles began to emerge in ways that made his killing even more tragic. His Vector 90 co-working space, designed to provide technology access and entrepreneurship opportunities for underserved communities, was just one example of how he was working to create lasting change that went far beyond entertainment.
Now they don't have nothing to do. All our stores are closed down. We were relying on jobs, and the whole community relied on them and the team that we had down there. Now the team is not down there, NIP is not down there, the whole community is affected. All of our stores are closed. We have nowhere to go. We can't go to Rouse to get no food. The only thing that we have is that shopping center. That shopping center is closed down now. Tourists are coming by there, can't even take pictures no more. Everything we built got tore down. One man's mistake, one man's action messed up a whole community.
His plans for affordable housing development, educational programs, and business mentorship represented a comprehensive approach to community development that was rare among celebrities and virtually unprecedented among hip-hop artists. Nipsey's final album, Victory Lap, had earned him his first Grammy nomination, a recognition that seemed to validate his decision to remain independent and maintain creative control over his music throughout his career. Unlike many artists who signed major label deals early in their careers, Nipsey had built his success through mixtapes, direct-to-fan sales, and strategic partnerships that allowed him to retain ownership of his master recordings. His business model was itself a form of community education, demonstrating to other artists and entrepreneurs that it was possible to achieve mainstream success while maintaining independence and investing in community development. The memorial service for Nipsey Hussle, held at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, drew thousands of mourners and was attended by celebrities, politicians, and community members whose lives had been touched by his work. But perhaps more importantly, it served as a launching point for continuing the community development work that had been so central to his life's mission. His family, friends, and business partners committed to carrying forward the projects he had started, ensuring that his death would not mark the end of his vision for economic empowerment and community building in South Los Angeles.